Today, we're embarking on quite a journey, really, into the life of a true cinematic icon, Romy Schneider. We've gathered sources, articles, biographies, film retrospectives, and they don't just list dates and movies. They paint this, well, compelling, often really heart-wrenching picture of a woman who was just infinitely more complex than characters she played, especially the early ones. Yeah, you've asked us to look into the, let's say, tumultuous life and the enduring legacy of Romy Schneider. So our mission today is to really unpack all those layers. We'll go from her time as this adored child star, almost kind of suffocated by that early fame, right? All the way to becoming the undisputed grande dame of French cinema. We want to delve into those surprising facts, the insights hidden just beneath the glittering surface of her public image.
And what's really striking, I think, when you look at Romy's life is how her private struggles weren't just, happening in the background. They often seem to eerily mirror the dramatic, emotionally raw roles she chose later on. So we'll try to connect the dots, between that explosive early fame, her relentless, sometimes maybe desperate pursuit of artistic integrity, and then the absolutely devastating personal losses that tragically marked her path. You'll find her story isn't just about glamour and celebrity. It's a deeply human experience, full of resilience, yes, but also profound sorrow.
Okay, let's definitely unpack this from the very beginning then. She was born Rosemarie Magdalena Elbach-Redi in Vienna, 1938. And she wasn't just anyone. She was born into this incredibly prominent Austrian acting dynasty.
Right. Her parents, Wolf Elbach-Redi and Magda Schneider, were already established actors, and the family history in theater and film went back generations. It almost felt like her path was preordained,
Absolutely. Which immediately makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How much did that powerful family background shape her destiny? Or maybe did it become a kind of cage she later fought against?
That's a great question. She grew up near Königssee, lovely place, attended primary school there, then went off to this prestigious boarding school, Schloss Goldenstein. And it was there, doing school plays, that she apparently really discovered her passion for acting. She even wrote in her diary something like, "If it were up to me, I'd become an actress right now."
Wow. So the desire was strong early on.
Very. She did consider art school for painting. She was talented there too, but, well, the acting call was just overwhelming, it seems.
And that call came really early, didn't it? Her debut was at just 15. In 1953's When the White Lilacs Bloom Again, alongside her mother, Magda.
Stepped right in.
Yeah, right into the spotlight. And then super quickly, 1954, The Story of Vicky, and boom, hailed as the most exciting new star. But here's where it gets really interesting, and maybe where that lifelong tension for Romy began. That iconic role as Empress Elizabeth, Sissi.
Ah, yes. Sissi.
In the trilogy, 55 to 57. That just catapulted her to international fame, massive fame.
Huge. If we connect this to the bigger picture, those Sissi films made her an instant household name across Europe, adored by millions. But, and this is the paradox, right? They also cemented this image of what she called a candy floss world, this sweet fairy tale thing that she desperately, desperately wanted to escape. And her stepfather, Herbert Blotzheim, who became her manager in 55, he basically controlled her early career. He even pushed her into making the second Sissi film when she really didn't want to.
So she felt managed, controlled.
Very much under the thumb of her mother and stepfather in those early years. It was a struggle for autonomy that, well, it defined so much of her adult life, really.
And she fought hard against that image, didn't she? It felt like a rebellion.
Totally. A rebellion against an identity she felt was just like imposed on her.
She actively looked for artistically demanding roles. She even picked the girl and the legend herself in 57, specifically to break free from that lovely, well-behaved German model girl box.
You can feel her frustration, can't you? It apparently boiled over when Blotzheim turned down major offers, including one from Louis Buñuel in Hollywood.
Buñuel, wow.
Yeah, turning that down must have been a pivotal moment. It seems like that's what really galvanized her. It led her to grab her future, take it into her own hands.
With films like Mädchen in Uniform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which finally got her that recognition as a serious character actress she craved. It wasn't just about ditching Sissi, it was about asserting her artistic ambition, her independence.
So, after fighting those early battles for artistic freedom, what was the next big step? It feels like a real shift was coming.
Oh, absolutely. After filming Christine in 1958, Romy made this complete, almost defiant turnaround. She packed up and left Germany.
And moved to Paris.
Took her acting future into her own hands, and this is where she met and famously fell head over heels for her co-star.
The dashing Alain Delon.
The one and only. Whom she'd actually personally picked for the role in Christine, apparently, despite them being kind of frosty at first. Almost comical, the stories say.
Huh. Funny how things start.
Mm.
And their relationship just exploded, didn't it?
Oh, completely. It became the talk of Europe. The media called them the fiancés of Europe, this mythic couple, like a real-life fairy tale. Everyone was captivated.
Young, glamorous.
Exactly. And while she was in Paris, she wasn't just, living the high life. She dove into the French cinema scene. She learned so much from the legendary director Luchino Visconti.
Ah, Visconti. That must have been formative.
Hugely. His intense, rigorous direction pushed her way beyond her comfort zone. It really informed her growth as an actress, solidified her reputation for depth, and she starred in some amazing films then. Visconti's Boccaccio 70 and 62, Orson Welles' The Trial, also 62, The Victors, The Cardinal in 63. She was really hitting her stride artistically.
But behind the scenes, 1963 sounds like it was a really rough year personally, a total contrast to the career success.
Yeah, it was. Her passionate 5-year relationship with Delon just dramatically fell apart.
How did it happen?
Well, she came back from a trip to the U.S., apparently, only to find he'd moved out of their flat. He just left her a note.
Just a note. Ouch.
Yeah. It supposedly said something like, "I'm sorry, I know I would have made you unhappy. I'm leaving for Mexico with Natalie. All the best." Brutal.
God, that's devastating.
Completely. And she was shattered. Apparently she attempted suicide, slashed her wrists. It was a really dark time. Wisely, she took a break from acting for about a year, tried to heal.
It's incredible how she came back from that.
It is. And what's fascinating in a way is how that intense personal drama seemed to almost fuel her artistic evolution, pushing her towards even deeper, more complex roles.
Like using the pain somehow.
Maybe. It's as if her real-life suffering gave her a deeper well to draw from, She returned to film with this incredible resilience, notably in What's New, Pussycat, in 65, the Woody Allen script.
Right, the comedy. That marked a turning point, didn't it? Showing she could still tackle challenging projects, despite the heartbreak. She was strong.
Definitely showed her strength.
So after all that turmoil, that very public heartbreak, she seemed to find maybe a more stable chapter.
For a while, yeah. In 1966, she was visiting Germany, met the actor and director Harry Mayen. They became a couple pretty quickly, got married that same year while she was filming Triple Cross, I think. And then their son, David, was born that December.
A new family.
Exactly. And for the next couple of years, she deliberately stepped back, dedicated herself just to being a wife and mother, took a break from the relentless film schedule.
But was that period really peaceful? Or just like the calm before another storm?
That's the question, isn't it? Because she did return to film in 68, and then in 69, famously, she reunited on screen with Alain Delon.
The swimming pool.
La Piscine, yes. The film was a massive success, and their chemistry was just undeniable, explosive, even after everything.
Must have been intense to film.
You'd think so. And apparently it was too much for Delon. He confessed years later, in 2011, that the memories were just too difficult. He could never rewatch the film.
Wow. It really underscores the personal cost behind that on-screen magic.
Absolutely.
The 70s, though, despite the complexities, that was really her peak career-wise, wasn't it? Just incredible artistic output.
Oh, undeniably. She starred in this amazing series of successful films showing incredible range. You had Love at the Top in 74, The Infernal Trio.
Ooh, the dark comedy with Morricone's music.
Yeah.
Based on a true story.
That's the one. Then The Old Gun in 75, and also that important thing, Love in 75.
And for that one, she won her first Caesar Award,
Yeah.
1976 Best Actress.
Which was huge. It was the very first time they awarded the Best Actress prize, a massive moment for her. She was absolutely at the zenith of her professional life.
Yet, and this is the tragic pattern, this professional success was happening alongside increasing personal anguish.
Exactly. It's heartbreakingly juxtaposed. She divorced Harry Mayen in 1975, and then, just 4 years later, in 1979, he tragically hanged himself.
Heaven, no.
He'd suffered from severe depression, apparently stemming from his horrific experiences as a prisoner in the Neuengamme concentration camp during the war.
God, another devastating blow for her. Losing her ex-husband, the father of her son.
It was just one loss in this awful series she endured, pushing her deeper into, well, despair.
And life changes kept coming so fast. She married her private secretary, Daniel Biasini, in 1975, the same year she divorced Mayen.
Rapid succession.
They had a daughter, Sarah, in 1977. She made A Simple Story in 78, which was another huge success, critically acclaimed.
Right, moments of apparent stability, new beginnings.
But despite those moments, it just feels like her life began to really spiral downwards from there. accelerating into tragedy.
It does seem that way. You look at her film Death Watch from 1980, about a woman selling the rights to her own death for TV. Right. It won awards, but audiences didn't really connect. And it's striking how much her art, by then, seemed to reflect her own increasingly dark reality, like a meta-commentary. And during filming around this time, her drinking, it became a very visible problem. Showing up drunk on set or not showing up at all, causing delays, costing money.
Pressure must have been immense.
Unbearable,
Yeah.
probably. And her coping mechanisms were clearly failing her.
Then came the absolute worst, the deepest, most unimaginable tragedy, July 5th, 1981.
Her son, David, he was 14.
Just a kid, killed in this horrific accident visiting his step-grandparents.
He was trying to climb over an iron gate, wasn't he? And he impaled himself, punctured his femoral artery, and just bled out.
So the suddenness, the brutality, it just completely derailed her life. Utterly.
Reports from people close to her say she cried for 3 days and nights straight. Couldn't even open her eyes, just completely broken by grief.
How could anyone endure that? And then her second marriage to Daniel Biasini.
Ended that same year, 1981, just 6 years after they married. Maybe the grief was too much for the relationship to withstand.
On top of everything else, she also had a serious kidney operation.
Yeah, adding physical burden to the overwhelming emotional pain, it's just relentless.
But her new partner, Laurent Petain, he offered some stability, helped prevent a complete collapse.
It seems so. And remarkably, director Jacques Ruffio persuaded her to make one last film, The Passerby, in 1982.
Her final bow, a really poignant end to her film career.
Very poignant.
And then just months later, May 29th, 1982, Romy Schneider, only 43 years old, found lifeless in her Paris apartment by Laurent Petain.
Found slumped at her desk, apparently, with an unfinished letter next to her, canceling an interview, the words just trailing off.
The official cause was heart failure, but they didn't do an autopsy, which, of course,
Fueled immediate, widespread suicide rumors, especially given her known depression, the heavy drinking, the tranquilizers. The public, having followed her dramatic life, just latched onto that speculation.
but the official report did rule out suicide.
Ultimately, yes. It stated no traumatic traces, attributed death to cardiac arrest, likely from that cocktail of drugs and alcohol over time. Her agent even said she seemed fine the night before, planning new projects. So maybe a physical collapse rather than a deliberate act? We'll never know for sure.
It's just so sad, that quote from one of her last interviews.
I'm just an unhappy 42-year-old woman, and my name is Romy Schneider. Heartbreaking honesty.
And she was laid to rest in that small village cemetery, Boissy-Sans-Avoir, with Alain Delon organizing this funeral.
A final, poignant gesture, wasn't it? Summing up their incredibly complex bond.
Which brings us to her legacy. Because despite all that immense personal turmoil, she's still revered, isn't she? One of the grandes dames of cinema, especially in France.
Absolutely. Look at the directors who sought her out. Visconti, Claude Sautet, Tavernier, Costa-Gavras. They recognized her immense, raw talent, her ability to bring this profound emotional truth to every single role.
And that appreciation hasn't faded.
Not at all. On the 40th anniversary of her death, for instance, they re-released 3 of her key 70s films, That Important Thing, Love, The Infernal Trio, The Old Gun, all meticulously restored high-def versions.
Wow.
Yeah, this ongoing effort to restore and show her work in cinemas on streaming platforms, it speaks volumes about her continued importance. It's proof her impact goes way beyond the early Sissi image she fought so hard against.
It's not just France, right? Germany has sort of finally come around, too.
Yes, albeit belatedly. Years after her death, you started seeing retrospectives, books, finally acknowledging her as Germany's favorite actress, which is such a contrast to those earlier years when she was almost resented for leaving Sissi behind.
A real rehabilitation of her image.
Definitely. Recognizing her as this major international artist, not just a fairy tale princess they felt she'd abandon.
So, reflecting on all this, you heard today how Romy Schneider's life was just this incredibly dramatic tapestry. Immense talent, huge public adoration, but also just profound personal suffering. It's such a stark reminder, isn't it? That fame, acclaim, even becoming a grande dame of cinema, it doesn't shield you from deep sorrow, from tragedy. Her story, from that child star to a woman consumed by loss, it really stays with you.
It really does. What stands out most to you listening to this? Maybe it's that unwavering commitment she had to difficult roles, or her complex, often tumultuous relationships, or maybe the enduring mystery around her final moments. Her life truly was as dramatic, as poignant, and as unforgettable as any of her films. The lines between her art and her own heartbreaking reality just seem so blurred, don't they?
Absolutely. And maybe something for you, our listeners, to mull over. How does our perception of a celebrity, often based on just one or two iconic roles, like Sissi, sometimes completely miss the incredibly complex reality of their private life? And maybe what responsibility, if any, do we have to try and understand the full picture, the nuanced human being behind that public persona? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this has given you a richer, perhaps more empathetic understanding of Romy Schneider. We'll see you next time.